Hi everyone, this is Wendy. This is the second video in my beginner series, and we are going to cut stained glass. I have picked this pattern. It's a simple pattern. I hope you can see it. What I do is when I have a pattern that I know I'm going to use a lot, I just use a regular envelope. I write on it what it is. And then before I actually start cutting out pattern pieces, I like to trace the pattern onto the envelope. And I have a basket or a bin where I store all these envelopes, so I can just, if I'm looking for a certain one that I need to redo again, I go into that bin or basket and I find it. So that's why I draw a picture on it as well. Sometimes you can, rather than reading it, you see the picture, you know that's the one you want. And we're going to be doing this 3-piece heart. And I have picked out 2 pieces of glass I'm going to use. This one is a Fractures and Stringers glass. You can see it has some deep purple and some light blue and a little bit of amber in it. And it has the different glass strings and fractures of glass made into it. So we've got that. And this one might be hard to see, but there, that turns out pretty well. That is a deep purple cathedral, and it does have a light texture on each side. You can see that. This is going to be the actual front side that we're going to cut on, because this side is smoother than this side. So we're going to use this side as the front side. And in our Fractures and Stringers, of course, this would be hard to cut on this side. Can you hear that? Where that texture is? This is the smooth side that we'll be cutting on. And let me grab my pattern pieces out of the envelope. And when I save a pattern, I always have one that I keep that we can refer to. I'll put that over there. And these are the pieces, pattern pieces that have been cut out. You can see this pattern I have. We've got the one. And I number in such a way that I know I'm going to be using 2 different colors. So 1 and 2 are the same color, and then 3 is the other color. I do it this way. Can you imagine if we have 20 or 40 pieces, we can number 1 through 10, one color, maybe 10 through 20, another color. We know at a glance what's what and where it goes. All right, now let's trace. And again, we want to do our tracing and then cutting of the glass on the smoothest side. And for the start glass, I've got a silver Sharpie that works real well. There are white markers out there. I'm not sure if Sharpie does a white marker, but I found this Sharpie permanent. I was looking to see if it was metallic or anything. Yeah, it does say metallic on it. All right, I'm going to trace that out. And even though we're doing a few pieces, it's always good to stay in the habit of numbering your pieces. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. There is a kind of groove. It's not a cut or anything like that. It was, I think it was put there when the glass was rolled out. I'm going to stay away from that, just so we don't have that in our piece of glass. Just watch for little, some people call them imperfections. They're maybe not necessarily imperfections. They're a characteristic of the glass from when the glass is made. But if you made the sun catcher for somebody, and I know I've had customers in the past who say, well, there's something wrong with it. It's an imperfection, and they either want their money back or they want you to make another one where there's not that little error. That can be an issue for some people. So take those little things into consideration. If you're just making it for yourself, then you may not care. But down the road, some people may not like it. All right, I'm going to cut and separate these pieces from the larger piece of glass. I hit a bubble. I hit a bubble in the glass. I've got my runners. Very nice. Move that larger piece out of the way and put this up here for now. Now let's go over to our fractures and stringers piece. Because we do have a pattern. We have a pattern here with the stringers going up and down in this. We want to decide how we want that pattern to be in the sun catcher. Do we want it to go across? Do we want it to go up and down, or maybe at an angle? I think it would be kind of boring if we did it straight up and down. And of course, this piece of glass, this was kind of not an actual sample set, but it was just a mixed set of different fractures and stringers that I got. And they're all 4 by 6 inch pieces. And we can see that our piece here is a little bit taller than that. I think I'm going to go ahead and do it at an angle like this, because when it's kind of upright, the stringers will be kind of going through it this way. All right. It's something to consider. Think about how you want the direction, the pattern of the glass going, what direction in your finished piece. No. And some days I end up with more marker on my fingers than I do on the glass. All right, again, number it, just so we don't get out of the habit of numbering our pieces, especially when we're working on something that has quite a few. I'm going to cut along and down here, separate. Now I'm not hearing my score. Let's hope it breaks all right. Got my runners. Did all right. I want to show you my oil-fed cutter here. I have a little bit of oil in it. Can you see that? Yes, you can fill the whole reservoir, but if something happens and it decides to leak, I would rather have a little bit of oil leak out than a whole bunch, and it would be a mess on our work surface. All right, now let's work on this. We do have an inside curve. I am going to start at one end of the curve. I am not going to cut on the curve. I'm going to cut a somewhat straight cut and separate. We can use our runners or our breakers on this one. I'm going to use the runners. Slow, even pressure. There we go. Now for the rest of the inside curve, I think one more cut halfway in, and then another cut to do the rest of it. And we broke a piece. So there's our first mistake in this video. All right, now let's hope we can fit another pattern piece out of this. And it looks like we can. We might have to be extra careful with this fractures and stringers. There are some glass, I may want to say it's compromised because of how much is going on in it, especially with glass like this that has those additives of the fractures and the stringers in the glass. So let's try this again. And if you've watched my other videos, you have heard me say, I do not edit out my issues while I'm working, because things are not going to be perfect for you, and they definitely are not perfect for me when I'm working. Things happen. All right. Let's do this again. And hopefully we can get this one to break okay. Or I will have to go find another piece of glass for this accent piece that we're using in this heart. All right. All right, again, halfway through, and I'm going to be careful. I think the reason that other piece broke was because I had too much pressure on the cutter, and there must have been a weak point in the glass. I'm using my Grozers, and I've got my jaw lined up with the score I just made. I've got my finger back here as a guide to stop the bottom jaw. I don't want it going any further. And we're going to break that off. Very good. Now, let's go in for the rest. And I'm trying to score on that marker. Okay, Wendy, not too much pressure on the end. Careful. All right, again, I've got my jaws lined up with the score we just made. And I'm going to try and be gentle. Okay, that worked out all right. Use the grozing aspect of this, and we can chew off a little bit extra there. When you use your Grozers, you got to be careful. You don't want to chew off too much. All right. I am going to clean off the rest of this piece in several scores. Start up here, and I'm going to come out with that. Okay. You can do it all the way around if you like. The only thing is it will not necessarily break that way for you. It will want to have its kind of relief points. Let me score around here and show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to cut all the way around this, and when we go to break it off, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to break off in one piece. Let's see what happens. See? It almost took all of it off, but we still had some of it left here. And we do know we scored there. There. All right, finish taking off that piece at the bottom. And I'm going to be careful I'm not using too much pressure. We know what happened when I was working on that first piece. Okay. All right. Let me get some of my bits out of the way here. I didn't grab, I usually have plastic sleeves for like page protectors to put my patterns in. I didn't grab one of those, but what I do is after I'm done cutting a piece, I lay it down on that pattern in the sheet protector, and then that is ready for me then to grind. With a few pieces like this, not a big deal. If we had something that had a lot of pieces, it really does come in handy. Then when you grind your pieces, you can put a wet piece on your sleeve protected pattern, and your extra pattern that you have to refer to doesn't get all wet. All right, we got that piece cut. Now let's work on these. We're just going to separate them. Come across here. And this glass does have a little bit of texture. All right. If you watched my video on how to cut glass where I taught how to cut using basic window glass, you will see me separating glass with my hands. If you feel you can get a good grip on it and you're comfortable enough to break with your hands, you can do that. A lot of it has to do with that there's enough glass for you to hold up on both sides. And in my case, I'm trying to stay in the view of the camera here. In my case, I can break it off quicker with my hands than picking up the pliers. Whatever you feel comfortable with. Also, if you feel more comfortable wearing gloves, please wear gloves. Now remember, I scored all the way around there, and you see how it didn't want to break that way. What I'm doing with my grozers here, I can see there were some sharp bits left, and so that's what I was taking off. Now let's go around the other side. I'm going to score all the way around it, and I'm going to run it with my runners, and hopefully I can show you how it doesn't always follow around the piece. Let's run it. I predict it's going to run up here, even though we scored around that direction. No, it wants to do it. I could hear it. It broke halfway. I'm going to come this direction. Light even pressure. And it did it. So I proved myself wrong, but that's okay. Every glass breaks different. It's going to go differently each time you work on a project. All right, there's that piece. On this, I'm going to do the inside curve first because that is our most difficult cut, most likely for something to go wrong. I'm going to do a somewhat straight score. Meet up with our pattern piece here. I'm going to use my grozers to break this piece off. All right. Now I'm going to go in for that other piece. I'm getting a reflection. Looks okay in the camera, but when I'm trying to look at the piece, I'm seeing a reflection from my work light. Looks like I'm going to have to do some grinding on this piece. Some spots I'm not on the marker or inside the marker. There we go. Very nice. All right, let's go around. All right, let's break this off. Like I said before, odds are, even though we did it in one score, doesn't mean it's going to break off in one piece. Now let's start here. See? throws off that little extra. That's why it's nice having this kind of grid work surface. You can just let those little bits fall down. And when you feel like taking it off and sweeping it up, you can do that. You don't have to worry about constantly cleaning off your work surface. All right, trying to stay in view of the camera. I'm going to go ahead and score this little tail piece here. Trying to use my thumb as a guide so it goes where I want. All right, we're kind of thin right here in our pattern piece. You could take another score here, break that away, and then go in for the other. I'm trusting myself, trusting that this is going to break correctly. I'm using my runners. Let's see what happens. Light even pressure. And it worked. Working with glass is not a perfect science. You're working with something so fragile, you never know what's going to happen or how it's going to want to break. All right, there's our other piece cut. I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to grind that. Okay, we are ready to grind. I ended up grabbing a sleeve protector to put the pattern in, and then I've got the grinder ready. It's got water in it and all ready to go. Got my finger cots on for a little bit extra protection while we're pushing the glass on the grinder. And I usually decide where I'm going to start grinding and fitting. Depending on how many pieces you have, you might want to work from the top down or left to right. This pattern's pretty simple, but we will do the left to right. And remember, our pieces, when we trace the pattern out, everything marker and outside is extra glass. Everything that's inside our marker is our actual pattern piece. So when I start grinding, you will see I'm going to grind off the marker and the excess. So what we're left with is our actual pattern piece on the glass. I like to do it in a nice fluid motion, because if we stay in one spot too long, we're going to end up with divots in our glass, and we don't want that. We'll end up with more or less bumpies in our glass. And when we want to have a nice curve. So that's why you'll see me, I know I had extra marker I needed to grind off of there, and rather than staying in one spot and risking a bunch of divots, I came back and just did it in a nice fluid motion to take off the extra that needed to come off. Now some of this I think is just smear from where I was tracing, smear from the marker onto the glass. I don't believe that was an edge that was marked on when we were tracing. That's more smear. So that's why I'm not taking all that off. All right, I'm going to look at my curves, make sure they look nice. Now let's see how it looks. I see a little bump there. I'm funny when it comes to curves. I want my curves to look really nice. Now let's see how we did here. All right. Now let's grind this middle piece. I see marker I need to take off. I'm not staying in one spot too long. I don't want divots in the glass. Alright, look at my curves. Something I didn't mention, I do have glasses on. It's always better to have your glasses on or safety glasses, even though we have a face shield. I need glasses to see. Mine are like the reading glasses. Okay, we've got a little bit of a gap here. Let me look to see where we need to grind to bring that in better. I am going to take a little bit off our white piece up here, and that should bring that closer. Now I also see a little bit of marker on our purple here. Let me take that off. Still a little bit of a gap. I can see it. I'm not sure if you can. I'm going to take a little bit off up here on this middle piece. Small gaps are okay. They do get filled in with the solder, but you don't want anything too noticeable. All right, on our sun catchers too, we want to make sure that the pieces come together nicely. And this white piece is a little bit longer than our purple one. Down here it's meeting up okay. That will be very noticeable once we foiled it and soldered it, so we want to take off a little bit on this white piece. Of course, we don't want to take anything off on the purple. We can't add to the purple, but we can take a little bit off the white so it meets up nicer. Much better. All right, now let's do our other one. Now it doesn't matter where it is up here, but we have to make sure it meets up nice down here. I don't think all of this is extra marker. I think some of that is smear. from where the marker smeared when I was tracing it onto the glass. We'll see how it fits. Again, I'm not staying in one spot too long. I just keep moving it around and letting the bit do its work. Look at my curves. Can you see that's not very nicely rounded? I want to fix that. You want your pieces to look nice. If they have little imperfections, little bumps, that will be very noticeable when you foil and then have your solder on the foil. So you want your edges to look very nice. I might be fussing a little bit too much, but I am always a little fussy about curves. All right, let's see how it fits. Fits nice. I'm not too sure about the curve on that purple. It meets up okay down here. I hope I can keep everything in sight for you. I'm still learning how to do videos, keeping everything where you can see it. It looks pretty good. Let me look at it again here. Curve looks okay for me. Yeah, curve looks okay for me. I'm pleased with it. And there you have it. We have cut and ground this little 3-piece sun catcher. I am working on getting all these patterns in my Etsy shop, so you can purchase them if you like. All my patterns are under $5, and when it comes to little things, I usually have a couple patterns on one sheet of paper. Make it worth your money to purchase. So when it comes to little things, like I said, for less than $5, you can get patterns for a couple sun catchers. Larger sun catchers, I usually only sell one for $3.95 or $4.95. But smaller sun catchers, I make them. I put two included for the price. All right, I think that turned out pretty well. I hope you learned a lot. My ebook is available with basic instructions on how to work with stained glass, and it also includes how to frame in lead and zinc and how to do patina. And my ebook is available in my Etsy shop. And please remember to subscribe if you enjoy watching my videos. Thank you so much. Bye.